For today's video, I'm going to cover some hidden aquarium costs that many beginners overlook and share tips and tricks on how you can reduce them or potentially avoid them altogether. First up is the more obvious one, which is electricity cost, which is something that new fish keepers do tend to overlook, especially with today's high energy costs. The good news is that most modern filters and LED lights are actually fairly energy efficient. However, aquarium heaters can still make a noticeable impact on your power bill if you're not ready for it. There are a few tools and online estimates out there that can try and calculate how much a heater will cost you, but there's just so many variables at play all at the same time that it's actually difficult to give a reliable estimate. This will depend on time of year too, and in summer I barely pay anything for my heaters, but in winter it can ramp up. It is difficult to know for sure, but I guess that each of my 25 litre or 6.6 US gallon tanks were costing me £3 per month during the winter months. So if you only have one smallish tank, it's not that noticeable, but keep in mind I also have 29 gallon tanks and 40 gallon tanks, and I have multiple aquariums in my fish room, so it quickly starts adding up. Thankfully, there is a simple and effective way to lower your aquarium's energy use, and that is to choose fish that prefer cooler water. For example, my betta fish tanks are kept at 27 degrees Celsius or 81 degrees Fahrenheit, which is the highest temperature I keep in an aquarium. I do have an article that I link in the description where I go over different fish species that I kept in room temperature tanks last winter that got down to 18 degrees Celsius or 64 degrees Fahrenheit and made it through the winter without issue. But species like white cloud mountain minnows, celestial pearl danios and medaka rice fish are all great options for room temperature tanks in most places. Taking this path completely removes the heating bill, and like I said, modern filters and modern LED lights are surprisingly cost effective, so it really can drastically reduce your power cost. The next hidden cost to watch out for is upgrading the stock accessories that come with popular aquarium kits such as heaters, lights and filters. Now I want to be clear from the very start, I am not against kit tanks in any way. Some of them are pretty bad, but there's some good ones out there if you know where to look. And if you're in the United Kingdom, the Superfish Scaper range can actually work out cheaper than buying your own DIY kit and buying all of the accessories separately. But the issue is that a lot of people realise a specific kit tank they purchase just can't support what they want to do with their individual aquarium. Some examples of this are wanting to grow red plants, which usually need higher powered lighting, or wanting to keep higher water temperature fish like betta fish in the kit tank's heater not being able to get up to the recommended temperatures. And this is where all the upgrades start to begin, and people often end up buying brand new accessories from well-known Western brands that in my personal opinion are often overpriced, or they will go with over-spec'd equipment that is usually more expensive than what they actually need. Thankfully, in this day and age, this doesn't have to be the case, and there's several affordable brands on the market like Haiga, Seora, Nicrew and Aquarium that I've personally tried myself and had great experiences with. I also maintain a regularly updated article that I link to in the video description that features my preferred aquarium accessory recommendations, and as new things are released on the market I will update it and keep new lights, heaters, filters and other accessories on the article so you're always getting modern recommendations. Next up is filter media, and I think this one is a mixture of marketing hype and a bit of flexing around how much people spend on their setups, which personally I'm really not into. From what I've seen, there does seem to be a noticeable trend in the aquascaping community where some people use expensive canister filters like Oase Biomasters and then fill them with premium biomedia like Seachem Matrix. Now this setup can work and it should easily hold the cycle on the vast majority of aquariums, but it can also give the impression to beginners that they need the same expensive equipment, and they really don't. I have a dedicated video explaining why I personally believe 30 ppi foam is the best biological filter media in the hobby, and I link it in the description. To summarise it though, it offers excellent surface area for beneficial bacteria to hold the cycle in your tank. It's also very affordable to the vast majority of other filter medias on the market. It's very easy to customise by cutting it to size for your specific filter. And my main advantage is that it's very quick and easy to clean in my experience. In fact, I use 30 ppi foam in all of the filters in my fish room, including my Fluval FX2 canister filter, which is packed with 30 ppi foam and has nothing else in there. If you're running a smaller hang-on back filter or an internal filter or box filter or something like that, you can easily cut the foam down to size as well to get some biomedia in there, and then cut a little bit of filter floss down for the mechanical filter polishing too. In my opinion and experience, there's just no need to go with expensive biomedias on the market, and some of them are very, very controversial. Another hidden cost that a lot of people underestimate is the price of aquatic plants in the hobby. Now, the obvious solution is to go and buy aquatic plants from cheaper retailers, but in my experience they can be very hit and miss. I've had to reorder certain plants from some retailers because they were shipped in very poor condition and the plant was melting and didn't have long left, and it was very difficult to keep it alive. If you're in the UK, I highly recommend Horizon Aquatics and Aquarium Gardens, and I've never once had a poor quality plant delivered from my orders from either of those. Now, I know their prices are a little higher than other retailers here in the UK, but my personal logic is I just rather pay that little bit extra to get healthy plants on the first time when I order them. Another very important thing worth mentioning is that many potted plants actually include several different plantlets in that bundle. This is especially true with a lot of stem plants and rosette plants, where you'll get a lot in that one pot and people often don't realise that. So if you take the time to carefully remove the individual plantlets from a pot of cryptococcus, you might actually be able to reach your planting goals with a single pot rather than buying 2 or even 3, keeping your costs down. I have another blog post that I link in the description going over how you can save money on aquarium plants by simply being strategic with the specific species you choose and how they'll propagate quickly. Next up are water change supplies, which are something that can vary quite a bit in cost depending on exactly what you want. Now, there is definitely a trend towards using Python water change systems in the hobby right now, but I do think that's more in North America, where larger aquariums are far more popular than here in Europe. While they are extremely efficient and fast for water changes in larger aquariums, they also have a far higher price tag as well to match that efficiency. For nano tank setups like a lot of the ones I personally keep, I stick to a very affordable bucket and siphon, and in my opinion for nano tanks it's actually the better choice. Not only is it more affordable and offers more control with smaller tank volumes, but it's far more durable. I accidentally stepped on my Python water change system's head with barely any pressure because I lifted my foot as soon as I realised I was standing on something, and the valve in it snapped, rendering it useless. On the other hand, I've honestly lost count of how many times I've dropped or stepped on my standard siphon and it just keeps on working without issue. So while Python water change systems definitely do have their place in the hobby, especially for larger tanks, the far more budget-friendly bucket and siphon system is still a very reliable option even for larger tanks, but for smaller nano tanks I still think it pushes ahead of the Pythons. Next up is hardscape, and this is something that can catch a lot of people off guard when it comes to setting up their first aquarium. Rocks and driftwood can get surprisingly expensive, especially if you're aiming for a detailed aquascape with a lot of hardscape in the aquarium. One of the more budget-friendly ways to get around this is to explore your local area and collect natural rocks and wood. Personally, I have absolutely no experience with this method. I do know it can work, but you will have to research it carefully to know how to clean the actual rocks and wood in your area before you put it into your tank. If you're buying your hardscape from a shop like I personally do, keep in mind that a lot of it is sold by weight. This means that lava rock is one of the best value options in the hobby because it's far lighter than other types of stone, so you get more rock for your money. When it comes to driftwood, spiderwood is usually very affordable and a widely available option too. This is because most spiderwood naturally has a lot of character due to how it actually grows in the wild, so there's just more of it out there that can be used for aquascaping, so more supply results in low prices. Now, you can avoid hardscape costs completely. I have tanks that have no hardscape in them at all. They don't look too bad, but to my taste I do think a small amount of rocks and driftwood just makes a tank look a lot better. Next up is tap water conditioner, and technically these are optional, and I have seen people say they've never used a tap water conditioner in their tanks, but personally I do plan to keep using them. A lot of people focus on water conditioners for their ability to neutralize chlorine and chloramines, which helps protect the beneficial microorganisms in your tank, and while this is important, it's not their only use case. A lot of products on the market these days also have the ability to detoxify heavy metals, which depending on your water source might actually be more relevant than actual dealing with the chlorines and chloramines. This is because the levels of heavy metals in tap water can vary significantly from place to place, with some locations having far more in their tap water than others. Personally, I keep shrimp in every one of my tanks right now, and they can be more sensitive to different heavy metals, so I personally just rather use a tap water conditioner to render them useless, and then my shrimp will be safe. If you live in an area where you know for a fact your tap water is treated with chlorine, not chloramine, you can technically gas it off by just leaving your tap water in a bucket for a day or two for the chlorine to turn to gas and leave the water. But like I mentioned, this method doesn't address the heavy metals potentially in that water, so personally I'd rather just use a tap water conditioner. Thankfully, they are really not that expensive if you actually read the label and work out how much you need to dose to your tank to do the job, because I see a lot of people adding way too much so they end up buying a lot more. You really do need a small amount to keep your costs low and keep your tank safe. Finally, we have test kits, and these are technically optional too, but personally I do recommend at least having something to test ammonia in your tank, especially if you're new to the hobby. I prefer liquid test kits because they tend to be more accurate in my experience, but they can be more expensive than dipsticks. If you are looking to keep your costs low, then ammonia dipsticks is still a budget-friendly option, but I'd recommend you specifically seek ones that are designed for aquarium use. I've used the API ammonia dipsticks, and they tend to correlate well with the results of my API and NT Labs liquid test kits and match up almost exactly. But they are difficult to find in my area, so I have tried a few different dipsticks designed for swimming pools, not aquariums, and they have been very inconsistent in their readings. And I mean, you can literally take 3, dip them in the aquarium, and they'll give different readings to each other. Now I know that some people say they never test their water, and that is technically possible, but personally I just prefer the peace of mind that having a test kit offers. With a lot of modern fish species in the hobby being far more delicate than they were just 1 or 2 decades ago, I just like the ability to track the toxic ammonia and toxic nitrite levels in the tank so I can make sure it's safe for my fish. Anyway guys, that brings the video to an end. Thanks for watching, have a good day and good luck with your aquariums.